What's up, guys? I'm Zachy J, and today we're talking about why clubs suck, why bars suck, right? And then after that, we're gonna get into some timeless pieces of advice, so you don't have to feel like, hey, look, there's no place that you can go. But to be fair, the reason why I'm tackling this issue is I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people have asked me, hey, where do I meet people? How do I meet people? I would love to find an amazing partner. And, we have to get into that because sadly, it seems as if there's not that many more obvious third places anymore. A third place is a public space outside of home or work where you can interact with other people. And for most people, what a third place looks like is just drinking in a bar or a club, and then they're gonna drunkenly stumble into Mr. or Mrs. Right. So, if you want to broaden your horizon, this is the video for you. So first, let's start off with why the bars and clubs are probably not the best place. You know this intuitively if you're an introvert. You've already solved for this. Or if you've ever went to a bar or a club, that music was so loud that by the end of it, your ears were ringing, and most likely you might have even lost a bit of your voice because you were just trying to talk to somebody that was right in front of you or right next to you, and they couldn't hear you, Wait, what'd you say? I can't hear a thing. Nothing makes sense. Whatever you said, I didn't hear it. Clubs are great. So why am I bringing this up about the loudness and the losing of the voice? It's because you're not going to outcompete a speaker system and the DJ. You're not going to do that. So what that really means is this environment is not, usually these environments are not great for communication. And communication is key if you want to actually get to know people. Sorry, you kind of have to talk a bit. You can't just look over at someone and then know 100% what they all about. You're going to have a conversation. So what's really happening, if you want to break it down and get a little granular, is when you're walking into clubs, it's the selection mechanism, especially if the music's super loud. The selection mechanism is just based on looks. Okay, so if you are an 8, 9, or 10, go ahead. You're gonna win. Go enjoy your wins. Run through the fields, run through the lilies. This is where you're meant to be. All you have to do is basically do a little catwalk, and then after you catwalk, just throw a glance at somebody, and boom, there it is. You're in a conversation, and they don't care what you say. I've been in so many conversations in a bar or a club where I'm just like, basically, it doesn't matter what you're saying. You're just kind of going off of a vibe. And I guess that's fine. For me, there needs to be a little bit more than pantomiming what a conversation would look like. I would actually like to get to know the person. So if you're not like an 8, 9, or a 10, you're not on that that far end over here. You're like an average person, maybe a little bit above average. Or if you're just an insightful person that realizes that you want more out of relationships, then just recognize what the selection mechanism is for these clubs. So yes, if you want to maximize your approaches and you want to maximize your success, you can dress a little nicer, get some fine fitted clothes, get some maybe a chain or something. They look nice, right? Look presentable. I don't know. If you don't want to go down that path, you're going to have to find a different one that includes deep connection. This is where the timeless advice comes in. And I didn't want to give a generic piece of advice because you've already heard it before and you're going to hear it 1,000 more times. And yes, the generic advice, sometimes it's really good. And sometimes it's just because you didn't apply it yet. So if you apply it, then maybe you can actually close the book on opening up generic pieces of advice. However, let me drop you a timeless piece of advice because this one transcends all cultures and it transcends all hobbies and clubs that may be out there. Yes, what is it? It is the adventure. If you truly want to meet interesting people, if you truly want to find yourself surrounded by beautiful people, people that really spark that interest in your mind, that spark that fire and kindle that spark within you, go no further than the adventure. There are two types of adventures. There's the long adventure, the one where it might take you across the world, where you're traveling and doing all this and that. And yes, that is really helpful. You're going to meet a ton of awesome people. It's everyone that ever has traveled only talks about how many cool people they've ever met. But do not sleep on the short adventure. That is correct. There is the short adventure, the one that is at your fingertips that you could go on to today. And those are the adventures that are basically free. And those are the adventures that if you go on them, you're going to find amazing, incredible, interesting people all along the way. And you're probably even going to find an amazing, incredible partner along the way too. So if you want to start embarking on one of these adventures, what you're going to have to do is stay true to your nature, stay true to yourself. You do not want to start by saying, hey, look, well, I can meet people if I just go to a run club, right? But deep down inside, you actually hate running. you know, you've never liked running ever before, and all of a sudden you're just showing up at a run club and just to meet someone. Well, yeah, it's better than nothing. I think it's better than it might even be better than the club, but it's not better for you because ultimately, unless you're bumping into somebody that is on the same wavelength where they hate running and you hate running, and now you're both together and you don't have to do running anymore, and boom, you solved each other's problems. Well, what's going to happen is you're going to end up doing something you don't really like doing, and it doesn't create a positive feedback loop. So it doesn't create what I want to call the adventure loop. That's right. The positive feedback loop just needs to be renamed into the adventure loop. The adventure loop is when you start doing something and that's so interesting that you keep doing the thing, or you do more things that are similar or like it, and then all of a sudden, boom, it takes on a life of its own, and now it's absorbing you in, and now you can't stop it, and now you're experiencing all these new things and talking to all these new people and going to all these new places. Yes, this is the adventure loop, and you can unlock it if you're being true to yourself. And so how do we be true to ourselves? A lot of you already know this, but it's always worth mentioning by being honest, okay? Intellectually honest, emotionally honest. You got to be both of these things honest, right? So when you're leaning into an adventure and you start doing the things that you're actually genuinely interested in, they tend to be things that will build out a skill, in yourself. They'll tend to be things that you might be hesitant to lean into because you might be a little fearful of it. You might be apprehensive of doing that thing because that thing might be something that you haven't done before, but you know that you've always wanted to try. And if you just had an opportunity, who knows what could happen? And those are great places to start. The skills are the great places to start too. So when you're starting these adventures, you're going out there, and I'll give you an example too. But when you're starting these adventures and you're going out there, you're gonna and you're generally being honest with yourself, and you're there because of the right reasons. You're gonna keep showing up, and and the way you show up is gonna be really powerful too. You're not gonna just show up and be like, "Well, I'm here. Let's see what's going on." Is there any hot women around here? Or if you're a girl, it's like, "Is there any cute guys around here?" No, you're gonna show up and be like, "Wow, I'm grateful to be here." And when you're grateful to be here, that's pretty incredible. That's where you want to be, because that's really attractive. When you are exuding energy, and people around you can sense it because you actually want to be there, you want to be in that moment, people are going to be like, oh, well, why does he want to be in that moment? Let me go figure out what he knows. Let me have what he's having. So, yeah, you want to have that because the other side of the spectrum, and you've seen this and you've experienced this, you've been in a place where you don't want to be there, and it could be a fun place too. And it doesn't matter because if you don't want to be there, other people can sense it too. And then, yeah, you don't want to be that stick in the mud because no great adventures ever started with, hey, and then I was a stick in the mud, and then nothing ever happened because I was just dragging my heels the whole time, right? Doesn't make a good story. So it's not going to make a good life story either. And let me give you an example of an adventure that's free. This one is a little esoteric because I have probably a bigger risk tolerance than some of you. Okay, if you have a big risk tolerance too, go for it. Like shoot for the moon. Why do I say risk tolerance? Because I was in New York and I decided to do some performance art. I didn't grow up that artistic. I didn't grow up musically inclined. I'm like drawing stick figures is stressful, okay? I'm not just drawing stick figures, I'm like saying drawing stick figures is stressful. So I'm in New York. I decide like, I need to become artistic. I need to figure out how to do things. I would like to have more under my belt than just, look, I got a degree, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be an interesting person, okay? So I'm like, all right, well, I can't do the guitar because I can't play the guitar. I can't do the painting. I can't do almost anything else, but I could do performance art. So that's what I leaned into. I started doing performance art. And performance art, if just look it up if you don't understand what it is, but it's essentially shenanigans. It's silly goose time to the extreme, and that's what I was doing. I was doing silly goose time, I was doing shenanigans, and I was doing it in art galleries. But when I started, I was leaning into it. I was like, I want to try this thing. I really am fearful about doing any performative activity in front of strangers. And so I was like, okay, I kind of just need to figure this one out and just lean straight into it and get through it. So that's, I started going to New York, talking to some artists. Turns out that they were going to do a performance. And they invited me along to the art gallery, right? And and I was practicing. I was like doing my thing. I was building up my performance piece, and I'm talking with them, collaborating with them. Then the night comes, and everyone's doing their performances, and they're doing kind of like cool performances. By the way, it's like super weird, but it's pretty cool. Like this one girl, I remember her distinctly. She had this like long hair. It's like super nice. And she has all these props, and apart from doing like weird things, she like takes out these toy brushes that she bought, and then she's just like combing her hair with them. And it was kind of like that, Ariel and the mermaid scene where she's combing her hair with a fork, but the more modern context of it, And then I do my thing, right? I go out there and I throw my hat into the ring, and I'm doing my performance piece. That it's one of those performance pieces that it's like, as any artist, you look back upon the first few things that you've ever done in your body of work, and you probably are extremely grateful that you did them. But for me, I was also extremely grateful that I didn't record them, because it was cringe. Not gonna lie, it was it was performative cringe. But you have to do that stuff. You have to do that stuff. You have to be able to lean into it and start from where you're at. And that's where the adventure started for me. I'm leaning into this thing. I'm leaning into my fear. I'm doing something I have never done before, and I'm doing it in front of all these people, and of all places, New York. And it's going, it's going great. It's going great. I'm gonna stand on that one. I'm standing on that business. It went great. I was amazing. And after these performances, everyone's like mingling and talking and stuff, and then I end up bumping into this amazing Brazilian artist. like a real artist, not a fake artist. One that could actually make real paintings and has toured the world with her art and her skill. And I'm like sitting there talking with her, and you know, because I went out there on a limb and I was getting feedback such as such a raw performance, you know, we got along. We got along. I was because if you stand out on the wire and if you decide to take your first steps out onto the wire and you're above that abyss where if you fall, like nothing there is going to catch you. Real artists will recognize the real. So, turns out she was recognizing it, and we had a great conversation as a result. And then later that night, we're going back to her apartment, and I was like, okay, it's going to be like an apartment in New York. Well, turns out that it was an apartment around Central Park, and it had like looks over Central Park. And if you know anything about the real estate in Manhattan, like in New York, you're gonna know that that's a pretty awesome, amazing apartment. And like we're going to this study, and she rolls up these little cigarettes, and we're smoking by the window. I'm just blowing some smoke out the window, and I'm looking out, and it's a hot summer night, and there's the orange glow of the street lamps, and then in the orange glow, there's these trees that are just dropping their petals. They're dropping the blossoms of these flowers, and it looks like in the middle of summer that it's snowing. And it was so picturesque and so scenic and so beautiful that that memory was like just getting like drilled into the core memory. And there's some soft like vintage jazz playing in the background, and me and her, we had a great night. And so that would never have happened if I did the standard thing to do. Whereas if you want to meet people, why don't you just go to the club, right? And have another conversation that you probably already had 1,000 times. Yeah, no, I didn't. I had a new conversation. I was uncovering new territory. I was talking to a person with real skills that they like certain interesting people that are doing things out there in the world. There's a growing population of people that are leaning into not drinking. We've realized, okay, oh, guess what? Just putting poison into your body every week is probably not the best thing to do. Like, sure, every once in a while, right? But every week as the only option, that's crazy. And so there's a lot of people that don't even drink, that are highly successful, that you would never meet if you were to only source your opportunities from bars and clubs. And this was one of those people. And I'm having a great conversation. I'm having great connections with them. And I'm realizing that this moment, like that I can't get out of my head because it was so scenic, I was blessed to have it because I leaned into fear and I started having the adventure. And that's why I want you guys to have the adventure too. Because along your adventure, you're going to find interesting people. And as a result of finding interesting people and talking with interesting people, if you were like me earlier on, especially my first few days in New York, I wasn't that interesting. I just had a lot of gusto, right? If you are talking and connecting with interesting people, you're going to become interesting. And then, because you became interesting, more interesting people will want to talk to you. And then more regular people are going to want to talk to you. And this is going to make a perfect catalyst for the adventure loop, where the more you do it, the better it's going to get. And as a final result, if you probably even without even needing to look for it, you're going to find people that are interested in you for a romantic relationship. You're going to find an amazing partner that is interested in you, that is also an interesting person, and they're gonna be in a place that you might not have anticipated of looking, because it's not where everyone else is, right? It's not at the watering hole where everyone else is. It's on this little bit of a detour It's a little bit of a side mission, a side quest over here is where you could bump into them. And yeah, those are magical places to be, and I really want that for you. So that's why I'm saying, please, for the love of fun, for the love of bettering this world, please start going on your adventure. You will become a remarkable person. You will become way more skilled. You will become way more interesting. We need interesting people. We need people with a wealth of experiences and skills. And we need people that are that can show other people like what that adventure looks like, And that's why the world needs this. Not only do you want it because it's going to bring you what you need, like these relationships that we deeply crave, this deep sense of belonging and connection and meaning, but the world will benefit from it. So I'm begging you, please go on some adventures. And I'll give you some more basic ad, uh, pieces of it. I'm going to give you some more basic advice too, so you can apply it in your life, because you might not be that wild where you're like, oh, I'm going to do some performance art in the middle of the streets tomorrow and see what happens. And that's perfect. Don't do that. Unless you want to feel, unless you're able to feel a deep sense of cringe and bounce back from that. But yeah, no, like you're like interested in like martial arts, jujitsu. You go do some jujitsu. You get in, and then you end up going to a competition. Maybe you're gonna meet someone, right? You know, what's another easier example? You're into you're into the river. You're into doing things on the water, maybe surfing or paddle boarding. Go do that, and along the way, as you're learning a skill, you're learning about life. You're actually living life. And when you're living life and learning about life and you're bumping into people along the way, you're going to have a good time. You're going to have a good time. And there's going to be people all along that path. They're going to people that dot the path of your adventures. And then you get the greatest opportunity to bump into them. So please, bump into these people. Go explore. Thank you for listening. I deeply appreciate it. And if you liked what you heard, think about giving me a like and subscribe. And I hope to see you again. Have a great rest of your day.